Everything you think about social media is wrong.
So you could spend all day making a piece of content that you think is great, but if you miss that first attempt at engagement, you might not get a lot of attention that way.
You have to go where the people are, which is on these social media platforms. Your thoughts?
I think it comes down to accessibility.
James J. Meyer is a commercial system sales and design professional at Jacco Associates, proudly part of the Ambient Collective, specializing in HVAC solutions for K-12, higher education, and healthcare facilities. With a background in technology and operations, he brings practical insight and a strong focus on learning and community.
When I create anything, I want to bring value to you and your day.
The gear doesn't matter as much as the content matters, right?
Absolutely. You have the knowledge. If that is good, people will overlook any of the technical issues.
Welcome to HVAC On Air. Today's episode is all about how times are changing in our HVAC industry. Just a few years ago, starting a podcast in commercial HVAC was pretty much unthinkable. Now it's a powerful way to connect and share your knowledge. Joining us today is James Meyer, HVAC systems engineer at Jacco Associates, and an exclusive HVAC On Air contributor.
Hey, what's going on, Tony?
Not many of you out there. It's going great. So James recently launched a podcast for his local ASHRAE chapter, which I'm interested to learn more about, which is pretty exciting. And then we're going to dive into what inspired him, how he's building community online, and what the digital shift means for HVAC professionals. So let's get started. James, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Do you remember the last time we had a recorded conversation?
I do remember that. It was at the factory CDI, I believe.
It was May the 4th, 2024.
Ah.
Yes, May the 4th be with you.
That's right. May the 4th be with you. Now, think about this. Just a few years ago, would you imagine you would be on an HVAC podcast today? Like, I take for granted how much things have changed over the last couple of years, like ever since COVID, right?
Yeah, I think at that point when I saw you at CDI and you were doing videos and all that stuff, and you were one of my mentors then, and I said, man, I want to interview Tony because, man, no one's really said, hey, what are you doing? Why do you do this? And I didn't really think that some of the next steps will be, me building an actual audience and having I guess you'd say, an influencer role over the mechanical equipment industry, but that tends to be how it started.
Yeah, well, I'm flattered that you consider me a mentor. Thank you very much. And the way we got started in this whole thing was like when COVID hit. So for those listening, thank you for listening and welcome to the show. This is episode number 3. So we're super excited. We recorded the first 2 episodes in a studio in New York, and now I'm at my home office near Asheville, North Carolina. And James, you're in Ohio outside of Akron, correct?
Right. LA, lower Akron.
LA. That's the hip way to say it, huh?
That's right.
I'm in Upper Asheville, so I'm in UA. So, getting back to like when COVID hit, I remember my boss at the time, this was another company, called me, said, hey, what can we do to stay in front of customers, engineering customers? Because the lockdown happened and we just couldn't go the places we were going before. Everybody was kind of scattered around. And I've got some stats actually to share with you, and we could talk a little bit about that. And he called me and said, why don't we start doing, this thing called Teams? Which at the time had you ever heard of Teams before COVID?
Yeah, my role during COVID, so I was actually, I was a public school administrator at the time, and I came up through the ranks in information technology.
Oh my gosh, okay.
I was part of the team that was trying to rapidly deploy an online learning management system, pretty much at a moment's notice, so that we could instruct our students when they were at home during COVID.
You're kidding me. We got to talk because I'm working on an LMS for training our sales engineers. So continue, please.
At that time, Zoom was really making a splash. They came out of right field as if they had planned on a pandemic.
Now, did you know about Zoom before all this or just kind of heard about it?
We had the slew of things was like Google Meets, which was Google Video, I think back then. We had Skype. If you remember, Skype was kind of the technology that Microsoft bought and I believe turned into Teams in a way.
It's funny, my boss, that call that I was talking about, when he called me, he's like, can we get on Skype? And I said, well, I think if we want to look really old and dated, we can get on Skype. I don't think people really use that anymore, but that was the norm for a while.
Yeah, and Zoom was the one that was coming out, and they were offering free licenses, and it was the Wild West because everybody was offering these things for free. Whereas teachers before, and people in my position where we were procuring these licenses, we would have to go to the boards and say, well, it's $20 per user per year. And, the video was kind of something that wasn't attainable for the average person or organization. And then once COVID hit, it was like, here, use this. We want you to be a subscriber to ours. And eventually the fees kind of kicked in from everything from Google Meets to Teams with their, the Office 365 environment. But that was how I remember it being a showdown of how are we going to instruct people with video, and we have to do it quick and we have to do it now.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I remember when it first started, at least in terms of like with the HVAC folks, it was super exciting. We would do online PDH classes on Zoom, and we have like 200 or 300 people, and people were in the chat like, oh, this is so cool. Hey, blah, blah, blah. And then like 2 months later, it was like, if I got to go to another Zoom meeting, I'm going to kill myself. I'm so sick of these Zoom meetings, right?
Yeah, I think there are still a large number of us, especially in the engineering community, that don't really want to go out, that still benefit from that. And I think the biggest plus side to having online learning available is that it meets people where they're at. Not everybody wants to be social, but they all need the knowledge to do the work. So this is just another avenue. And you have short format, long format. You have online text versus online audio video. People who are looking for that information now have multiple channels to get it.
Yeah, you got to go where the people are. If you want to grow something or market something or explain to people how to do something or teach, you got to meet people where they're at. And today they're online mostly, right, on these different platforms. And I'm going to read some stats to you on this sheet I put together. I was going to try to memorize this, but I'm getting too old. I don't care anymore. So I'm just going to read this off of here. But here are some stats to kind of, lay the foundation for some of the stuff we're going to talk about. So remote work in general. Okay, so pre-COVID, which here is 2019, 5 to 6% of U.S. employees worked remotely full-time. And that's 5 to 6% of people who could work remote, right? Like obviously tradespeople and stuff like that. They got to be on the job. So 5 to 6%. In 2020, lockdown hit, and then that skyrocketed to 42% of the U.S. workforce that could worked remote full-time. From 21 to 23, it dropped to about 30%. And then we have hybrid roles included in that as well. And it's predicted to be that for this year too. So 30% of the workforce that could work remotely is going to be working in some sort of hybrid role, which takes away from the, in our industry, if you want to go see contractors that are office workers, if you want to go see engineers, it's hard to really go see everybody in the same spot. And even from a standpoint of like you being in the office and training engineers and training your coworkers, helping with your coworkers, right?
Right. And to me, comes down to time. We all have so many hours in a day. Some of those hours are necessary to travel to see people. Some of those that amount of time, if you were to spend it, and me, I spend a lot of time driving as a salesperson doing business development all across Ohio. I drive a lot.
What's your go-to when you're driving? Podcast, audiobook, music? Are you singing? Do you sing a lot when you're driving?
Podcast, audiobook. I sing a lot when I'm driving. I pass the hours and I like it. I get to choose if I'm going to learn. I was going to a customer in Columbus that had a VRF system that had an issue, and I'm not a technician, but I needed to know between the time I left and the time I got there what they were doing to pull a vacuum on this system. I put on a 45-minute start to finish, pull a vacuum by some tech in Georgia, the Southern accent and everything. I'm driving down the highway, just learning my little tail off about, different things they're doing in their vacuum. I get there, I walk in, I'm like, okay, there's that. I'm like, okay,
right.
I just made myself more valuable to the process. And
you learned.
And I learned.
Right.
And I'm not trying to to convince the tech. I try and be very honest and genuine about what I know,
Right.
so I don't get into trouble later. I'm not trying to convince the tech that I could, help him evaluate that system. But when it comes to explaining a concept to the owner of that system, or the engineer that may not be familiar with what's going on and why the system you sold isn't working because I designed it, my name's on it. I'm looking for you to put this fire out before it gets back to my desk. That knowledge is what I'm trying to be, that intermediary between the guys that are our industry professionals on the ground and who the decision makers and money holders are.
I love how you used that time to prep for a meeting by going to, you said it was a YouTube video, right? It's funny you said that the guy had this Southern drawl, because I got a message from someone on LinkedIn. If you're listening to this, I can't remember your name, but he messaged me. He's like, hey man, I'm really inspired by what you and some of the other folks are doing. I've been wanting to start a podcast and do some videos online, but I'm self-conscious about my Southern accent. I have a real deep Southern drawl. And I was like, bro, I would own the heck out of that. Like I would be the redneck HVAC guy or the hillbilly or whatever. You don't have to even say that, but like it's the differences and the uniqueness that people relate to. It's not the sameness, right? Like if everybody was exactly the same, it would be boring to watch them online. So that's a little bit off topic, but you brought that up and that kind of sparked into my head. So
if you're ever on the feds or worried about an accent, don't. Some of the coolest voices in radio are there because they are unique.
yeah.
And when you're explaining a concept, talking slow, having a slow Southern drawl
Right.
can be beneficial. I tend to, when I get excited, I start talking really fast and people tend to miss what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're a Yankee. That's how you
if
do
you're-
it up there.
If you're naturally slow and intentional.
No offense to Yankees. Gotta put that disclaimer in there.
Hey, we are used to the motor mouth up here.
I love it. When I go to New York City, it's a different experience than living here in the mountains, not only in speed, but in four-letter word discernment. There's a lot of words got there. My wife can tell when I come back from New York City. It's funny.
But that agency of choice, to being able to choose how to spend your time with this media, to be able to find it, to be able to ingest it, is a great way to just have agency over your job and your time. And you have to be a little bit more vigilant about what you're choosing to watch. You're programming your mind with everything you watch. You could watch 25 minutes of Instagram Reels.
Right.
Or you can watch 25 minutes of our, Southern boy HVAC lesson plan or whatever. And it's the same 25 minutes. It's up to you to choose that.
That's good. And sometimes I'm going to choose the educational stuff, like especially if I'm driving somewhere, that's a great use of that. But sometimes I want to veg out and I want to laugh at stuff too. And I do it for that as well. So there's all different. So you're going to get what you're going to get out of it, what you look for on there. And you could find good stuff online and you could find bad stuff online. I talk about this all the time because there's this misconception about social media. And, I usually start out by saying everything you think about social media is wrong. If you don't use it as a tool to create and disseminate content, you don't really understand the power of it. And there's bad stuff out there, just like there's bad stuff on Google. Like you can find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for the good, healthy stuff, it'll make you healthy. It'll make you better. If you're not, it won't. That's just plain and simple. Like what you feed yourself and what you feed your mind is the same kind of thing, which is exactly what you're saying. So let's talk a little bit about platforms. So some more stats here. Let's talk about podcasts first, because I'm really interested about your ASHRAE podcast and also the videos that you do online. So James does a lot of videos, and we would talk about your LinkedIn page and stuff like that in a minute too. So podcast growth, this is kind of a shock to me. I had no idea. So in 2018, this would be pre-COVID, there was 525,000 podcasts. In 2020, we surpassed 1 million podcasts. In 2023, 4.1 million. And in 2026, it's projected to be 7 million, which I'm thinking, man, it's hard enough to get everybody's attention, where all these podcasts coming from. So we'll talk about that. And then LinkedIn, I'm going to focus on basically the podcasts and LinkedIn, because you and I are pretty active on both those platforms. And I think a lot of our listeners are active on both those as well. So LinkedIn engagement jumped 50% during COVID. Video posts increased engagement 5 times since COVID. And LinkedIn has about 1 billion members globally. And I don't know, people who are listening to this who are not active on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is becoming really a very popular social media platform for professionals. It used to be just a place where you go put your page and you look for jobs, but it's really a great place to exchange valuable information. And technically, it's actually the oldest social media platform. It's older than Facebook or any of the other ones. So explosion of activity online combined with the fact that people are remote more than ever. You put those two together. Well, if you want to grow your brand, if you want to teach, if you want to grow your business, you have to go where the people are, which is what we were talking about earlier, which is on these social media platforms. Your thoughts?
I think it comes down to accessibility. Just 3 years ago, the audio quality on your mobile phone wasn't great. Now on this, iPhone Pro 17 or even just your standard iPhone SE that you buy at your kids, the audio quality in those are far superior than what we had on tabletop DAWs in 2006. I mean, these for $100. So the accessibility of being able to create a podcast or your content is so much easier, is so much accessible that I think that's key to the explosion of the numbers. The platforms where people hang out allows you to get exposure. But I would like to dial back to that time concept again. There's 7 million podcasts. Maybe 700,000 of them are worth listening to. You can make content on anything on your phone, but always do it from the perspective of you are committing someone else's time to listen to it. So you can make a podcast. I could pick this up and talk into this for an hour. I can upload that to Spotify, to an RSS feed, to Apple Podcasts. But what am I actually condemning you to as a listener? Like, I am creating this for what? And I always look at it that way. When I create anything, I want to bring value to you and your day. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And as a former administrator, I use the example a lot. We would sit in a cabinet meeting with the superintendent and the other directors, and everyone in there is making more than $80 an hour. And we sit there for an hour and talk. That's 10 people cabinet meeting. That's $800 that we just spend of the taxpayers' money. If we don't look at the entire use of that time as value, then we miss the opportunity. We miss the exchange of value. So 7 million podcasts, look for the ones that are giving you value for your time. And you see a lot of them that are paid. One of my favorite podcasts is called No Agenda. And Adam Curry used to be on MTV when I was a kid. He was a VJ. And John C. Dvorak was a tech columnist for PC Magazine when I was a young geek. And so both these guys get together and they start a podcast. They don't have any sponsors. They do everything from donations, and they call it value to value. So They provide something. If you think it's valuable, you give them money. I don't necessarily want value back. I don't want anything back for providing value, but it does help me build credibility. It helps me with my exposure as a sales professional. It builds trust. So by me making sure that podcast or piece of content is valuable to you, the value I'm getting is not monetary from that exchange, but it is value for me and my career.
That's so important. And, if people are listening to this, because we're going to talk about how you use it with ASHRAE and other things, and are considering starting a podcast or making content, what I always tell people is nobody cares about your business. No one cares about your products. They care about what you can do. Why are they listening to this? What value are you bringing them so that they can succeed and grow in whatever their journey is, right? How do I look better for my boss? How do I make an impact on the next project? How do I change my status? How do I get more respect in the industry? These are the things that people think about. If we could plug into that and be more customer centered rather than on ourselves and on our business, it goes in line. And I'm just regurgitating exactly everything you just said, because that's been my experience. Like, nobody cares. People want to watch stuff to learn or to be entertained or to get, entertainment and information at the same time. If you could plug into that, the funny thing is the more you give away and the more you bring value, the more you grow whatever you're trying to grow. Because you do build that trust, you do build that credibility. People want to come back. And, I always try to follow the kind of the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule. Like, you want to give away 80, 90% of it. But then you got to, hey, just a reminder, we work for Ambient, right? Ultimately, I work directly for Ambient. And this is a good segue into that, because I didn't talk about that at the beginning. But the reason we're connected is I work for Ambient Enterprises. And Ambient Enterprises is the parent company of many HVAC rep firms. One of them is the one you work for, Jacco Associates. Right?
Yep.
So that's why we have this podcast. HVAC On Air is here to educate and empower the HVAC community. You know, we hope that a lot of engineers and contractors listen to this. We get some building owners, maintenance guys, service techs, architects, etc. But the reason we do that is to give back and to build our brand. We want to build the Ambient Enterprises brand as a trustworthy go-to source for all things commercial HVAC. And the rep firms we rep, we want to build their brands, and the product we rep, we want to build their brands as well. So that's ties in exactly to what you're saying. And a good segue to give a shout out to Ambient, who pays our bills ultimately, or pays my paycheck ultimately. So
Yeah. Yeah. And we didn't know that back in May the 4th of 2024 that we would be working together. But I'll tell you what, that was a really great piece of news when I found out that, wait, Tony's here now. So let's go.
Let's go. Now let's talk about something that is always fascinating to me. So when I first started doing online content, it was in the way of a Zoom meeting presenting to engineers. And on the first call we had, I think we had like over 200 people, engineering customers and counterparts that I work with, like the people I work with, right? I was absolutely terrified. Like, I am not a natural. People see me today and like, oh, you must be just a natural. I'm like, no, it was awful. The first couple of years was terrible. In terms of the fear and the insecurity, and if I said something wrong, which happens all the time, and I've probably done that 5 times since we started this, I would ruminate over it for the next couple of days. I just said this. I can't believe that. So-and-so turned their camera off when I said this. What do they think of me? Yada, yada, yada. So all the insecurities. Did you have any of that? And what was your experience with that?
When it comes to presenting, the most animosity I have is when I don't know enough. Yeah. Or when I feel I don't know enough.
Is that stressful? You said animosity, but is that a stress or like an anxiety? Like when you're coming here today, were you worried about the show or?
Here, no, because I'm bringing myself. I think I'm more of
it.
like in a technical presentation. The things that always hold me back from being free and open are, well, I don't want to come across like I don't know. I want everyone to think I know. And I've had to actually practice just acceptance of being genuine. You know, my career path hasn't been all HVAC. You know,
Right.
I've been kind of a journeyman, so no one really expects me to know, at least in the engineering side of things. Like I'm in a room with 14 guys. I'm giving a presentation on a product that they've designed and installed for 25 years.
Right.
And so I had to just kind of get over that. It's better to just be yourself, to not worry about that. And that put all the rest of the stuff aside. In my line of work, I have people to back me up. We have great engineers. How many engineers work for Ambient that I can call
Right.
if I have a technical question? My job is to be the front end of that relationship, the person that if something goes wrong, they know who to call. If they have a need and they need a presentation on something, I'm at least entertaining so that their junior engineers aren't going to be like, oh man, another lunch and learn. Why do you schedule these things? Well, at least Meyer's coming in and he's bringing food. So
It's a free meal.
yeah. And when it comes to the online stuff or putting yourself out there,
Yeah.
I think I do tend to not post things because it's not good enough or doesn't send the right message. And I need to just post more. But as I said earlier, my thing of value is I don't want to post something unless I know it's bringing you value.
Yeah. And I think you do a great job. A shout out to the last video. So I introduced you as an HVAC On Air contributor because those who work with Ambient, the Ambient collective that want to do content for the YouTube channel are welcome to do that. So if you're listening to this, you heard that, give me an email, shoot me an email. But HVAC On Air, our YouTube channel, you have a video you sent us, which we put up there, which was a great geothermally cooled grow room, which was very unique.
Growing copious amounts of ganja, yeah?
Growing something, right? Growing some sort of plants. And but you did a great job with that. And so when you go out in the field and you're doing video, walk me through how that one came down. Now you've got the kind of video camera, and you could tell if you go watch this video that it's on the end of a stick, so because you're solo, you don't have a camera
Yeah.
guy following you around.
I'll show you here. I have it.
Oh, we got a prop.
Yeah, so this is the Insta360. And you won't see it in the video because it makes
Right.
itself invisible. It's got a little selfie stick here.
And the stick
it's-
disappears in the video.
Yeah. So what you're looking at here is you have two 180-degree fisheye lenses roughly. And when you put those together, it's smart enough to know where this stick is. So then it takes it out. And that has been a great addition for me because I want to capture the moment. And
Right.
when the moment arises,
you gotta
hey,
be
let me
ready
get
to
my
roll.
camera. Right.
Right.
Hey, let me go get my camera. Hey, let me find a guy. Hey, can you film this for me? To me, if all those things have to happen, you might miss the moment. And so this is always with me. It's in my briefcase no matter where I go.
Love it.
And I'll pull that thing out and I'll say, hey, let's do a video. This is a great concept. And when you're explaining these things to an owner, a lot of times the owners, the people who are making the purchasing decision, they aren't technical. And we're making something that is invisible. You don't see the air around you. You're making that concept visible by putting these, at least the pictures of the process and explaining what's happening in that room. Suddenly the owner goes, oh, I didn't realize that we couldn't just make that room 88 degrees and humid and have lots of great product growth.
Right.
The guy that's investing in it, why are we spending 7 times the amount of the original proposal on geothermal wells? Unless you have a way to show that, a lot of times they won't grasp it. And then you're dealing with just straight, well, I gotta trust Jay, or I don't want to spend the money. I'm going to do it the other way. So having a way to make the invisible visible is kind of the philosophy there.
I love it. And you're right. You want to be able to capture it quick. And one of the things I've learned too, like I've got two rigs. I've got my iPhone rig, which is a gimbal and a couple little remote mics, which is fairly painless and easy. Then I've got the 4K rig, which you'll see at AHR, which has got it's intimidating. And depending on the person, usually you'll get a lot more interaction on the phone than you will on the big hoopty rig. And you don't need, one of the things that, a lot of people don't understand is you don't need a lot today. And as a matter of fact, a lot of times the content on my iPhone does better than the content on the 4K souped up rig that I have, just because it's more natural. People are used to it. And you could capture the stuff, like you said, in the moment when you need to, right? And I'll give you an example of this. Like, I used to run another podcast at my last job. I ran their podcast, and we had 350 episodes or something like that. And we have the nice, I have the nice mic, and we've got this virtual recording studio, so we got a lot of nice stuff. The best podcast we ever had was me talking into my phone for 30 minutes about heat pumps. I hit the record button. And I said something like, I'm getting a lot of questions about different types of heat pumps that are out there. And I'm going to talk about the 10 most popular. And I talked about air cooled, water source, yada, yada, yada. That was the best, like by a mile, than any of the other ones. So what am I trying to say? The gear doesn't matter as much as the content matters, right?
Absolutely. That's a great way for anyone who's getting into it to look at this. You have the knowledge or the item or the thing that you want to convey. If that is good, people will overlook any of the technical issues.
Right.
To a certain extent. I mean, if there's a whole bunch of fan noise because you filmed it in a mechanical room,
right,
you might not get a lot of attention that way.
Yeah, people just overthink it too much.
Yeah, barrier to entry. And I do think it works just like you said, when someone brings that big rig and it's got the gimbal's the size of a broadsword from Lord of the Rings, and you're waving that thing around. I mean, that does intimidate people, especially some of our more quiet engineers that tend to have the knowledge that we need to pull out.
Right. And everybody's got, like, one of the other things too is, people don't think they have something valuable to say, or you might think, well, I'm going to talk about this specific topic, but it's already been talked about a million times. But no one's the way you talk about it and your personal experience with the topic and your personal opinions about the topic, that's what makes it unique. So everybody's got their own thing. And I can tell you, I've talked about the same thing so many times, like in different ways, because what I talk about it this year would be different than last year. And I was doing something. This is kind of a funny story. I was going to do a video. Somebody asked me to do a video on like calculating CFM through a duct or something like that using static pressure. So I had to, because I don't do that every day. So I got to look it up, and I Googled something like, measuring total versus static pressure and calculated CFM. I Googled that on computer, and a video of me came up from 3 years ago explaining.
That's great.
It's like, so the point of that is like, we forget this stuff. Like you can reteach this stuff anytime. And again, everybody's got their unique. Okay. So let's talk about.
And a funny thing on that note, one of my most memorable videos that you made was you straight up reading a natatorium design guide. I don't know if you remember doing that.
Yeah, I'm going to do that actually on this podcast. That's a great. I heard somebody doing that. So, let's dip into this for a minute since you brought that up. But like, to me, a podcast is an audio way to disseminate information, right? Like the example of me talking about my experience with heat pumps, or just reading that manual. What you're talking about is one of our natatorium manufacturers has this great design guide. And I said, I was getting on a podcast to read this. People want to hear it. And it did great. People love listening because they were like, oh, that's interesting stuff. And I was just reading up, and I wasn't like faking it. Hey, I'm Tony Mormino, the natatorium expert. I'm going to tell you all I know about natatoriums. I was like, hey, I got this guide. I want to read it. If you're interested in that, hang out for 30 minutes and I'll read another batch of it next month. But I'm glad you reminded me of that.
I bookmarked it as soon as you said that in the beginning, because I'm like, oh, good. Someone's going to read me this manual. So when I'm driving
Isn't that funny?
to my next pool unit, job, I'm going to go meet an owner and engineer and look at a pool. I'm playing that Tony Mormino design read.
I'm making a note. It's already paying off dividends, this podcast. So where was I going with that? So podcasts are like, a place to audibly give information. They don't always have to be a back and forth interview like we're having now. Like our first 2 episodes were this way too. But the next episode, I think I'm going to do a rehash of, the latest in heat pump technology. Here's 10 different types of heat pumps and when I would see these, because there's a lot of confusion about heat pump chillers versus heat recovery chillers and stuff like that. So I'm just saying that if anybody's listening, you could use the podcast in many ways. When I go around and do the booth interviews at AHR and you do your booth interviews, we can take those and put a clip together and say, hey, to follows there are 10 things we learned at the AHR show. Boom, go. And that could be a podcast as well.
I think I'm going to do one called JRTFM. Jay reads the full manual.
There you go.
And I'll use the audiobook narrator voice.
I love it.
Say the Samsung DVM system.
Okay, now you already
S2.
messed up. You're trying to read a VRF manual. Like, how bad those are. And shout out to all my VRF friends out there and manufacturers. I'm not saying anything to get in trouble because they all know it. They're just the hardest thing to read.
Yeah, they are probably a little lost in interpretation, some of them. But man, I would just like to, know if anyone would listen to all of it. Maybe good to for HVAC technicians to fall asleep too.
There's one way to find out.
Yes. Do you want to fall asleep and fall asleep quickly?
I learned that trick too because a couple ways. I was listening to a podcast once of this lady. I can't remember the name of the podcast, but she was reading the articles that she wrote for a newspaper. She would just read them. And I was like, oh, what a great idea, And then there was a story about this guy. He's a famous online guy, but I can't think of his name, Pat something. And he read a study guide for like a PE exam or something like that. It wasn't a PE exam, but he just read it and he blew up. It made him real popular online. He made a career out of that. So yeah, so podcast experience. So before we talk about your ASHRAE podcast, your videos you make, what are you doing with them and why do you do them and what are the results you're getting?
I think it's just it's a natural thing that I like to do, is probably why it comes easy to me. But I'm also not, I'm not new anymore. I guess, now that I'm over 4 years in the industry, but I needed to build my own credibility. And if you're not out there, you can only be one place at one time, but your video can be there all the time. So in a situation that a lot of young professionals will find themselves in is they may be more than capable, but people don't know that they're credible, or people don't know that they have experience. So whenever I'm in the moment, and it could be something I'm doing new, that's exploratory, it's novel, I'm sharing the interest that I have in this moment where wow, we're doing a helicopter lift of rooftop units today. This is intense. It's awesome. I'm not explaining how, the amount of pounds of lift a helicopter has to have to get a unit to the roof, or what the electricians are going to do when they get there. But I am showing that kind of experience. So I'm sharing an experience with my audience that isn't normal, or they don't get a chance to see. Something as simple as building a built-up unit in a auditorium that we were doing. We were a knockdown unit that we were building on site. That's something that people don't get to see. There's going to be a lot of people that go to that university that sit in that auditorium, in that theater performance center. They'll never see that getting built. I feel like it's a lot of value to me to show that. And when you walk into these old buildings, you see these relics of mechanical equipment. It's kind of smells musty. There's water, there's drips, there's noises, there's fans. But all that stuff was once shiny and new. Yeah. And it's a testament to those who built it, who assembled it, put it there, designed the system. We spend so much of our time in these buildings, and we just don't think about the mechanical equipment. I was in Nationwide Arena, and their ice making machine was a big CO2 chiller. No idea how it worked. It was just cool. I just had to show that to people. And that's the part that comes naturally. It's like, man, I have this experience. I want you to have the experience too.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird like creator thing. You do it for business and credibility too, but there's this, I don't know if it's drive to kind of create and share things. Would you say you have some of that, or what are your thoughts? Or do you do it when you do it, or you're like, oh, I guess I got to do this because I'm trying to grow my business? Or do you feel that creative instinct in you and you have to kind of scratch that itch?
I am thrilled that my creative instinct helps me grow my business.
Right.
It just works. It just worked out that way. I was a media production student back in undergrad. So I naturally just kind of went to, let me just create some audio video stuff. Ended up in, through technical sales. But for the most part, that was what came naturally. Now, you also have to feed your family, and there are things you're good at, and technical sales was one of those things. But they go so well together these days that I wake up and I'm just very thankful that I can be myself or have that moment to share an experience, and it helps my business. I share other experiences in AV all the time that don't have anything to do with business because I just like to share them. I try and get people to do the things that bring me joy, whether that's in business or on the side. I don't know if I should admit this here. I'm a rollerblading influencer because it brings me joy. So I just record myself, other people having fun on skates, and share that with people.
Now we're getting to something. Now we're getting down to some stuff. Rollerblading influencer. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I didn't want to take us down that tangent so soon in our relationship.
I used to love rollerblading.
Well, you should.
Can I do it today if I haven't done it in 15 years?
Absolutely.
How are the ankles going to react?
Yeah, it's a slow build. I started again in 2018 due to my daughter. And then when COVID happened, the cities were empty. So there was an opportunity to skate the way you always wanted to, right down the middle of Broadway.
Own the city.
We owned them. Parking garages.
So your daughter, how many kids do you have?
2 kids. My oldest, 16, and my daughter is 14.
Nice. I've got 2 teenagers and one that's 20. So
okay, so you're a little ahead of me. But my daughter never took to skating, but I did.
Nice. So do you post those videos as well?
I do.
Do you want to talk about that, or you don't want people to watch you rollerblading and see you in some like rollerblading shorts and stuff like?
That I'm going to put that onus on the viewer. If you follow me, you will eventually see some really great rollerblading content. And I'm not hard to find because I skate all over Ohio. For the most part, we do a charity skate every year where we skate from Cincinnati to Cleveland. It's 340 miles. They drop us off in Cincinnati with some skates and a backpack with a tent in it, and we have to skate our way home.
What?
It takes about 6 days.
6 days?
And we've raised about oh boy, we're probably pushing $25,000 we've raised for local children's hospitals.
Oh, that's great.
Doing that little gig.
That's awesome. How do people find that if they want to donate or be part of that?
They can go to ohioskates.com.
Ohioskates.com. Okay.
And that's just, again, the part that comes naturally. I guess you always say that the things, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life or whatever, they say that. But when it comes down
Yeah.
to it, the things you love don't often feed your family.
That's right.
But when those times come together where you can do something you love and it helps feed your family, which is why we're sitting here today, that is just a tremendous benefit.
Then don't be scared to try new things too. If you're doing something and you're stuck and you've been unhappy for a while, try new things. Hopefully that'll feed the kids because, teenagers eat a lot, I've learned.
Yeah. You may find yourself in HVAC.
That's right. And I have the same experience because once I started doing, we were talking about like when COVID hit and I started doing those webinars online, people got sick of the Zoom meetings and team meetings. So we started, LinkedIn Live had come out just about that time. And I was like, ooh, we should try this. Now, everybody I worked with thought I was insane. They're like, you're going to show HVAC videos on LinkedIn Live. You're going to teach HVAC classes on LinkedIn Live and provide PDH credits. I'm like, yeah, I think so. We're going to try it. And we did it. And we were just shocked. Like, people want the content. Like, they want it. And it's probably the same experience you've had with creating your podcast for ASHRAE. So tell me about how that kind of came around. You just started doing that last year. Is that right?
Yeah. So just a little over a year ago, I joined Columbus ASHRAE as a communications chair. And for anyone in the industry, I highly recommend joining ASHRAE, becoming a member at large, seeing how the organization works, and building that professional network. Again, I have the benefit of, I switched careers. So I had the knowledge of, the history of professional organizations. I was in different ones prior. And then to be able to jump into one that was so supportive like ASHRAE, where we kind of put all of our competitive things on the side and we get together to help each other learn and develop in HVAC mechanical engineering. It's niche, but I'll tell you what, the amount of knowledge that goes to an ASHRAE meeting is unrivaled. I mean, you're sitting in a room with 80 guys who helped build the city of Columbus, and you're looking around like, wow, here are the guys that, the titans, and a lot of them, you know who you are. You're falling asleep in some of those meetings because you're getting up there in age. But we still look at you like, hey, man, that was some good work you did.
We're not known for the cool and exciting factor at the ASHRAE meetings.
But that was...
I include myself in that too.
But that was the core of when I was looking through my directives as the communications chair. They have something called PAOE points, President's Award of Excellence. And it's basically a rubric that you score yourself on all the activities you do as communications chair. And it's like, post a notification of your next meeting, 5 points. Post a summary of your previous meeting, 5 points. Post this about somebody, 5 points. Podcast with a senior ASHRAE member, 50 points. President, whoa, back up.
Nah.
What would you say right before that?
Right.
It's a podcast thing. If you get someone with like 30 years experience to do a podcast, you get 50 PAE points. I'm like, what am I doing anything else for?
Let's go. Now, did they have a podcast, a local chapter, or?
No, and this is something that I'm working with our region on, and nationwide, take note. This is the easiest way to get 50 PAOE points. I'm revealing something here. This is the value for those of you who are in ASHRAE chapters, because now you can just kill your scorecard. You can rack up. You do 10 of these, you get 500 points. That's pretty much all they ask you to do as a communications chair. So you can do nothing else but some podcasts, and here you go. And the other side of it is that those titans of mechanical industry that are sitting in there, the guys that have the firms named after them, are sitting there falling asleep in a meeting because they've done it all. They've heard all this stuff before.
Right.
But what we don't know is, how did they get there? Why are they doing that? Maybe the people that work in their office understand a little more of their story, but who gets the access to ask them, why did you do it? When you built the Key building in downtown Cleveland, what were some of your other options at the time it was built for providing comfort, heating, and cooling to that building. What were the drawbacks? Was there people that weren't, going to pay for cooling in that because of the nature of the building? Those kind of questions are in these guys' heads and gals' heads. And I think that is the overall purpose for me of that podcast was to find and archive the knowledge of
Nice.
those folks. And that was the original goal. Now sometimes it's hard to track them down and sit them in front of a microphone. But I would like to start a nationwide trend where some of the brightest and most historically credentialed minds get on there and just have a casual conversation, because
Right.
whenever we see them, they're just sitting in a meeting that they already know. And this gave us a whole nother
Yeah.
opportunity.
I love it. I would love to have more senior mechanical engineer, design engineers on this show. It's really hard to find some that want to get on a podcast. I have found, and they have so much information. You're right. I would love to hear their experience and talk to them about like taking risks in new equipment, taking risks in new systems, and what their experience with what that is and how do you balance that. And so I would love to have those conversations too. So when you're talking, you've done a couple episodes, what's the reception been in people coming on the podcast? Have they been fairly like, I guess I'll do it? And I'm going to say too, this is what I think. If someone asks you to be on a podcast and the person is nervous about it, like that's normal, right? Like the people that don't get nervous in doing this they're crazy. They're like psychopaths, like
me.
Yeah, like you. But no, most people like to get nervous and still do it is very normal. So if you're being asked to go on a podcast and you feel that way, you should feel a little bit nervous because you've not done it before. And then once you do it, I stopped being nervous after episode 101. So I'm a real big baby and very insecure and have a serious mental issue with thinking I've done something wrong or I said something wrong. I don't have it anymore, but this was in the beginning and it was torturous. But so I don't have that now. So if you have that, just come on 100 episodes, just do 100 episodes and you'll be done with it.
We set out to make it a very comfortable experience. So we designed systems. A podcast system is no different. The whole system was designed to make it inviting and friendly. So we specifically said we are going to meet in bars or we're going to meet in a public area like a Panera Bread or something like that.
Right.
We designed a system that includes these headsets. And I can put together a whole list so you guys can do this too. Some of them have bigger price tag. These aren't cheap. But you could put these headsets on anywhere and get high quality audio, even in a noisy bar. So one, you take the whole studio thing out of it. Two, if they like to have an adult beverage, I'm more than willing. Let's go. We could have one of the reps sponsor some of that. It just kind of takes some of the walls off.
It's
brings
fun.
the walls down, makes it fun.
Yeah.
And then our questions that we send beforehand is this is an opportunity to talk about your experience with ASHRAE and your experience with mechanical engineering and HVAC. We're not asking you to teach us a specific lesson. We're not asking you to talk to your lawyers, about a problem job. And I think that has been a great part of our success and the reason why I think a lot of people would like to get or are willing to join that show.
I love it. Yeah, that's great to talk about the human side of it. Your experiences, not necessarily all the technical stuff, which is super important. And we're going to do some of that on this show too. But I like to focus a lot on the people. Like your story is so unique, and I love it. And would you, if people are listening, someone's listening and says, "Man, I would like to start this with my local ASHRAE chapter," could they reach out to you? Is that okay, or what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah, just
what's the best way to get a hold of you? Email or look you up on LinkedIn?
Email me. If you go on LinkedIn and you send me a message, I
there you go.
I check that 2 or 3 times a day, so you can just send me a message there. I'll get right back to you.
Let's do that. And if somebody wants to reach you, just check them out on LinkedIn and go from there. What has your experience been on LinkedIn over the last year? Have you seen a lot of changes with how LinkedIn is changing, or what are your thoughts? Anything insightful there?
Only that I try not to put too long a format stuff on there. because people look at it at work. I feel like I'm going to, if my long format stuff's on there, it's going to be, it might not get finished. So what I do is I tend to put the highlight on there and forward that to, the long format on YouTube or something. So it's more of a conscious maneuver to watch the whole thing. Don't know if that is best practice. It just seems to be what I've fallen towards. I don't know the LinkedIn algorithm. I haven't studied it as much as I have the Instagram algorithms for more of the personal stuff. So I would take any insights on that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with what you're doing. You want to share like a teaser and then direct them to the longer form stuff. Yeah, we should do another show about maybe that topic, social media 101, and how to use it to your advantage. And I would say too, like I have this conversation with at least our sales folks, and this probably goes for a lot of busy professionals out there. It's people ask me all the time, like, how much should I post? And I said, well, you got to look at it from the reality of your time available, right? Like if you're just going to post every once in a while, that's great. Just do that and don't stress over it, right? Like you got enough to worry about, and then if they want to post a lot, I'm like, well, what are you doing between midnight and 4 a.m., right? You could post them, but I don't recommend you do that. I think you should go to sleep and, get a good night's rest. But I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're looking to post more content, just take it slow, unless that's your job. Like that's my job is the industry engagement is part of my job. And you got to do a ton of content to build a brand and do that. But if you're a professional, just document kind of what you're doing. Maybe today you're working on a design and you could show a little bit of that. Be careful not to share anything. Be careful not to share anything you're not supposed to share, but then just take it slow. I guess that would be my advice.
Yeah, we should do a deeper dive on the algos when we know a little bit more. And when I say the algos, so if you're making a video and you post it, the algos is the computer AI, whatever you want to call it, the math that surrounds who gets to see it, or who they show it to, who the machine shows it to. So from the perspective of someone just starting out, when you make a video, that first first 3 seconds, Tony, is so key in capturing the original eyeballs. The computer AI mind is monitoring that. So they know that if 10 people watched it, and out of those 10 people, 9 stayed for 3.5 seconds, they'll show that to 200 more people.
That's right.
Then the alternate where if 10 people watched it and 1 person stayed for more than those first few seconds, they will show it to relatively no one.
That's right.
And so you can spend all day making a piece of content that you think is great, but if you miss that first attempt at engagement, you won't get at least the new viewers that could benefit from what you made.
Absolutely. The machines have taken over. Okay, so one more thing. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but you and I are heading to AHR. And I'm super excited about that. And we're going to bring our cameras. You're going to bring your 360 deal, and I'm going to bring my rig, and we're going to go around and do booth interviews. So what do you think about AHR this year? What would you say to someone who's never been there before?
AHR is the best way to see the expanse of an industry that we're in. From someone who wasn't in the HVAC field 5 years ago, I still to this day wouldn't believe it unless I went to AHR. And when you go there and you see the amount of commerce that is done in the heating and cooling industry, it's inspiring. I think a lot of us feel, okay, well, no, I'm an air conditioner salesman. I'm just some guy. I went from a career over here to now I sell HVAC equipment. But the reality of it is that, it's 40% of the world's energy. We spend 40% of our time or 80% of our time in a building that has to have this equipment. When you first walk into that floor and you look around, you get a real sense of how important you are and how important this industry is. So if you've never been to AHR, you got to go, if nothing else but for that. And it's also a ton of fun. You can learn as much as you want to learn. You can party as much as you want to party. You'll get out of it. You'll find what you're looking for there. And this year, I've got a list of folks that we're going to go out and see, and it's a great opportunity for our manufacturers to tell us more about their products while we're there. And if there's something that you want to learn specific to, if maybe you can't go, maybe you're too busy this year, and you say, hey, Meyer, check out this for me. I'll do it. I've got some time left on my calendar, and certainly Tony you would do the same thing. If someone said, hey, I would love to see this. Can you get this on a podcast or something?
There you go. That's right. Man on the street, James J. Meyer. So
right.
James, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Let's do this again.
Absolutely. And we will see you soon.
All right. Well, James, hang out here for a minute. So if you're listening, thank you so much for listening. And we are excited. This is episode 3 of our podcast, and we're going to be doing much more of this. So please, there you go. So please subscribe. And if you have a second to leave us a review, we'd love to hear your review, even if you don't like it. Like, these guys are so annoying. I can't believe it. 1 star. Well, give us 5 stars if you're going to say something bad. Come on. I mean, help us out, right? We got kids to feed, right, James?
Right. I mean, 1 star, we're at least worth 4.
Well, we'll take what we could get. Amen to that. But thanks so much for listening, and thank you for being on the show.
And thanks for having me, Tony.